reflecting, celebrating, and planning for the new year 2025 ahead. So the purpose of this presentation this evening is to reflect on personal growth and challenges, acknowledge the role that supporters or caregivers play in the affected or the individual with blood disorders, how they can be a supporter and an advocate, learn strategies to set goals that accommodate health and wellness priorities, and gain practical tools to work collaboratively or independently towards meaningful goals. So as we go through, I want us all to reflect on our growth, our successes, those challenges, and also really think about your achievements and celebrate those achievements, either, no matter how big or small. And I want to provide some practical and realistic strategies for setting those goals and balancing health, wellness, and all types of life priorities. So I want this to be a space this evening for our members who are living with a blood disorder and those who are loved ones or caregivers or supporters of those who are living with a bleeding disorder. So reflecting on the past year. So we have a nice small group. So if you want to share out loud, please feel free. This is a safe space. So if you want to get off mute and share out loud, or if you want to put it in the chat. But I want us to reflect on this past year in 2024. So if you are an individual with a bleeding disorder or a blood disorder, what were some of your biggest challenges? What were your biggest health-related challenges? And what were some of the self-care strategies that worked well for you? So I want you to take a moment and think about that. If you want to share out loud, you can, or if you want to put it in the chat, you can as well. Now, if you are here with us and you are a loved one or a caregiver or a supporter, I want you to think about, how did you provide effective support this year? So as a caregiver or supporter, I know that is a really big job and task. So how did you provide effective support? And also, what challenges might you have faced in being a support person or caregiver?
So do we want to take a moment to let people come off mute and
Sure.
give an opportunity to answer some of these questions?
I see some pondering. I see some reflection going on. I know this year, it kind of flew by, right? Yeah.
Well, I can say for me, my biggest health challenge was the fact that I was dealing with a mild inhibitor, which is never fun because that means your medication is not working like you need it to work. And it's been a really strange year. So I wasn't getting the peaks that I was supposed to be getting. And I've had a history, at least 6 years that we know of, where my medication has not been working right. And I've had short half-lives and all these crazy issues. And my peak on a pretty high dose was down to like 82%. That was as high as we could get it to go. And I should have been up over 100. And at one point I had, and then I ended up having a very crazy situation, which this wouldn't happen for most people. It's unique because of my mutation, but COVID became ITI for me because COVID raises von Willebrand factor levels, which can raise factor levels. So the 3 weeks I was positive for COVID, it ended up being like an internal immune tolerance. And after COVID, with no other changes at all, on the exact same dose, it increased by like over 50%. And now my peaks are ranging from 120 to like even as high as almost 150. So it was a really strange thing because I avoided COVID for a really long time. And ironically, I had a very weird gift that came with being COVID positive for 3 weeks. And it's bizarre and not something I would ever recommend. But that's kind of been like the last few months, and we keep testing it to see if it's really sticking, and it seems to be. So it's been a crazy ride from 2018 to this surprise gift of it seemingly in remission. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
that's the positive version of the law of unintended consequences.
it was weird, but I'll take it. Like I'm enjoying it.
You gotta hope for long COVID.
No, yeah, no, actually, no, I don't have long COVID for sure, but the ITI, because when people do ITI, it usually does its thing. So you don't need the ITI continually. So my own levels are back down after 3 weeks, but but my body isn't attacking the infused factor like it was. So I'll
So
take it.
Shelley, what made you test check factor levels while you had COVID?
Because my doctors know I've got a really wonky mutation and all sorts of weird things happen. So my own COVID level, my own factor levels shot up. They almost doubled during COVID. But it's normally you wouldn't check that. It's because I have the wonky inhibitor issues that my hematologist wanted to be on top of things. I don't think any of us expected that it was going to become an immune tolerance thing. We just did it. We actually just did it to see whether or not I would have to infuse because we knew that it could potentially drive my levels up higher. So, yeah, go figure.
Mhm.
Life is
Yeah,
never
well,
done.
that
How about the
is,
rest
I
of
would
you?
say you are, thank you for sharing, Shelley. I would say those were good.
I think we lost Robyn for a second.
Oh,
Robyn,
can y'all hear me?
yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. I want to make sure that I'm not freezing on y'all, so I'm in kind of like intermittently pausing my video, but I'm absolutely here. And thank you for sharing, Shelley. I would say those were or are some big challenges, but I like how you are navigating it on the positive end. So that is a very great attribute to be able to navigate those challenges because challenges will come, but being able to navigate and then also having a strong and supportive system, a support system. So thank you for sharing that. Did anybody else want to share? Have any
Well, I'm gonna
challenges or strategies?
well, I'm gonna share. This is, of course, about my son, but I honestly, he doesn't mind me sharing this. But it's for me too, right? Because it was a challenge for me. He got a really bad bleed in his mouth. His tooth or something happened. Um, and his fiance kind of took him to a hospital who has no clue about hemophilia. Not sure why she did it, but I kind of said, okay, let me, as a mom, step back, let the fiance go ahead and, help. But it was really challenging for me because where she took him, they just gave him some medication for the pain, and almost into the next morning, he couldn't breathe. Like his mouth had swelled up so big, he couldn't breathe. His tongue was actually blue. So she kind of said, let me take him to, the hospital he always go to, who, knows about his hemophilia. And they had to admit him and do a surgery like immediately. So the challenging thing for me is that I was like maybe almost an hour and a half away. So when I got to talk to him, and talk to the fiance, she was telling me what was going on. So, I just did my best. to not, she was there at the hospital with him. So the challenging thing for me was not to go ahead and drive way up there when he was being taken care of by the right people. So, I just had to be patient and allow her to kind of be there after being a mom for so many years of always being there when he goes into the hospital. But she was there at the hospital, stayed with him at the hospital. So I just made sure I went and seen him and just kind of put eyes on him and make sure he was okay. But it was challenging for me not to get in my car and tell her, listen, just go home. I got this. Because I'm so used to taking care of him. And he's 41 years old with a fiance. So that was a little challenging for me. But thank God, he gotten better once I got to see him, he
Yeah,
was.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Renita. And I'm glad that you are, I'm glad to hear that he's better. And it's, I hear that he has a great support system with you
Mhm.
and his fiance. And I hope that in this session tonight, you can take some things away because you are a supporter and a caregiver, even though he has a fiance,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
you are a caregiver and you're a
Mhm.
loved one as well. So I hope that you can take some nuggets from this session tonight and be able to do some things for yourself as a caregiver and also for your son. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. You're welcome.
That's amazing self-control, Renita. I don't know if I could have done it. And I just wrote in the chat, whoever said parenting gets easier when they turn 18 is so wrong because we lose all the control, but we still
Yeah.
It's
have
a
all
whole new
those
set of
urges.
challenges. Yeah.
That's so true.
Also,
So-
how is he
Mhm.
doing today? Because that sounds like it was a very scary incident.
He's definitely doing better today. This is the thing that I fight so hard when we go to the legislators this to meet them is that, you know, dental is all part of your well-being, right? He doesn't get the benefit he needs for dental. It's almost like he has none. They don't even include that in like the medical part of it. And I'm like, but that's all part of his health too, right? Dental. I mean, he could barely breathe. His tongue got blue. I mean, it was serious. But with no dental coverage, how do you take care of that?
Yeah, that's scary. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're
Yeah.
advocating.
That's like a issue in itself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't want to skip over anybody. Does anybody else want to share anything or share any reflections on this past year? We have time, but just want to give some space if you feel like you want to share right now. All right.
So
Well,
for people who have hemophilia, when I got it in 1955, we were on plasma product for about 12 years before factor. That is really hard on your joints. So at 69, my age now, my battle is to keep as limber and independent as I can because my knees, ankles, hips are all, they've all had bleeds over the years. So even though I don't have hemophilia anymore, I still deal with the consequences of when I did have it.
Yeah, Rick Starks likes to use the expression motion is lotion. So basically, it is important to keep moving.
Absolutely.
so I'm glad that we're kind of bringing up some of those things because we're actually going to touch on some of that in the presentation. So are you all still able to hear and see me? I hope so. Okay,
Mhm.
good.
Yes.
All right. We'll keep on going. So we're here because we want to get inspired to set some new 2025 goals. So in order for us to set those goals for the new year, I want us to think about what matters to us the most. I know we probably have a long list of things that we want to accomplish and things to do. We kind of all sometimes want to just cram it into a certain time period, or there's things that you're just like, oh, I have a long list and I don't know when I could do it. Or some things might be trivial, some things might be important. But I want you to think about what's really important, what matters to you the most. Also, thinking about how we are mentally, physically, socially, and financially. There are aspects in each one of those components that has something that matters to you. So when you're thinking about what matters to you the most, think about what matters to you mentally, what matters to you physically, socially, and financially. And then think about how you want to do this on your terms and on your time, because no matter what, these are your goals, these are your aspirations, and these are your accomplishments. So this is for you. So on your own terms and on your own time. So we will keep on. So let's get into it. So SMART goals. Have anybody heard of SMART goals? I know it's like it seems kind of new, but then it's kind of old, but that's the framework that we use for when we want to set goals. And I love it. It keeps you like right on task, right? Those SMART goals. So the framework for SMART goals is SMART. So S is for specific, clear, well-defined goals, right? So you want to make it very clear. You want to be very specific, not really ambiguous, not really general, but you want to be specific with it. M for measurable. The progress can be tracked. So you made your specific goal. So you said, hey, I want to be physically active for at least 3 days a week, doing something very low impact or moderate. So that's really specific. I even made it measurable. I want to walk a mile for 3 days a week. So I'm getting specific, I'm putting that measurable to be able to track that progress. A, is it achievable? So I think that I can, be able to walk a mile around my neighborhood. I think that's realistic. I didn't say that I wanted to prepare to go to the Olympics in 4 years. I don't know if that's achievable or really, realistic, but being able to do something low impact, in my neighborhood, I think I can do that. So that's realistic, and it has some limitations. I don't personally have a bleeding disorder. However, I do have like other things going on where I have to be very thoughtful of my health and how far I can push myself. So the next point in our SMART goals is R. Is it relevant? Absolutely. So being able to have some low impact physical activity, it does align with my personal values and needs. Being physically active, it's something that I think our bodies really need and will appreciate, and it's relevant. It's relevant to our bleeding disorders. It's relevant to our physical health. It's relevant to our mental health. So absolutely. And then lastly, the T for time bound. So setting those time, setting that goal, setting that time period. Hey, I want to be able to start this at the beginning of January, and then I want to hit, 5 miles by the end of March. So really being specific, having that measurable time and being time bound, and then being really realistic. You don't want to set yourself up to be disappointed, or I don't even want to call it a failure, but you don't want to be unrealistic to where you can't hit that goal. So when we start to jot down or think about those goals that we want to set for the new year that's coming up, keep in mind those SMART goals. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That can make it very, very easy, very, very smooth and seamless. All right. Does anybody have any goals they've started thinking about yet? Not yet? You know, we all, when the new year comes, it's like, yeah, new year, new me. So, you know, once you leave out of here, once you start to, start to set those goals, you can think about it being in the SMART goals realm. All right. So let's break it down. I want to break it down a little bit more specific. So we're talking about SMART goals. So let's be a little bit more specific. So with health and wellness, that's a component of our goal setting where I think that we all kind of have in the forefront of our lives, our health and our wellness, especially when we have certain medical or health conditions, especially and particularly in this setting with bleeding disorders. So when you are thinking about setting those goals and thinking about your future health and wellness, as the individual with a bleeding disorder, you want to think about setting goals to attend or make those regular medical checkups, your appointments. Medication adherence, that's another very important and critical aspect of having this condition. And then managing symptoms. So if you have certain symptoms or if there's something new that has come up, you want to be able to recognize what's happening and then managing. So if you know that there are certain symptoms that you have, just having the knowledge and education of how to manage it. And then when you have those regular checkups, you'll be able to let your provider know. And then, of course, that medication adherence is very, very important. Now, as a supporter or caregiver, because we do have a caregiver or a supporter here in our group this evening, helping schedule or being that reminder, scheduling those appointments, and even the appointments for yourselves, because being a caregiver or supporter is a very, very important role. That's a very important role. Managing stress, and then ensuring that you are taking care of your own health. So not only does the individual that has that bleeding disorder or has that condition, they have certain things that they want to make sure that they are keeping in line with and setting those goals to do. As a supporter or caregiver, you want to make sure that you are doing the same as well. Because if you aren't taking great care of yourself, there's a chance that you might not be the best caregiver or supporter or loved one for that person with that bleeding disorder or that condition. And then think about creating a shared goal. So if you are a caregiver or if you are the person with the bleeding disorder, you guys can come together and create a shared goal. So that could look like building and maintaining a healthy routine together. So if you have those regular medical checkups, setting a plan to make sure that you all are there together. All right, so we'll go into physical activity and exercise. So with physical activity and exercise, let's see. For the individual with the bleeding disorder, low impacts exercise routines, safe physical activity. So that could look like swimming. That's a low impact physical activity that is very good on the joints. Walking, that's another really great low impact physical activity or exercise that it's really good for the joints and other parts of the body, very heart health and everything. So swimming, walking, and then also when you are doing other physical activities and exercises and even sports, you want to make sure that you are ensuring that you have all your safety gear on. So if you're bicycling, making sure that you have your helmet and your knee and elbow pads on, extra clothing if you are doing other things outside of like those low impact exercises. So creating that goal of doing physical activity or incorporating physical activity into your routines. But when you do, making sure that you are taking the right steps to be safe when you do so. Now, as the caregiver, you can assist by doing those exercises with your loved one. And then also ensuring that safety, that they are wearing their safety gear or wearing extra clothing to protect their bodies, and encouraging the progress. So if you have made that goal of incorporating more physical activity into your routine, encouraging your loved one to keep going or encouraging them to stay on to that schedule or keep on that path of that goal that they've set. Incorporating physical activity into your goal setting. So I don't know if that's something that you all already do, but if it's not, or if you do, if you're already in physical activity and exercises, as the person with the bleeding disorder, you want to think about incorporating low impact exercises. So something like walking, that's really good, not only for the joints, but also for your heart. It's a great like exercise just to clear your head, so mental and physical. So incorporating walking, if that's something that you don't already do. Swimming is another great low impact option. And if you are a person that gets involved with sports, you want to make sure that you are doing things like wearing your helmets, wearing your knee pads, wearing your elbow pads, you know, if you want to go biking or hiking or anything like that. If you are the support person or the caregiver, make sure that you are encouraging their progress. So by you encouraging them with their goal of incorporating physical activity, that's going to keep them going. And not only that, that will allow you to have the same opportunity. So as a shared goal, you all can do those activities as a team, keep each other accountable, and then that will allow you both to hit that goal of incorporating physical activity. So that's just another thing to think about. The next component that I want to touch on is the mental health. When we have certain conditions or like with the bleeding disorder, Shelley shared earlier that she had just like this wild ride of different things that was happening in regards to her bleeding disorder. That was, I'm sure, and I don't want to speak for her, but I'm pretty sure that may have played a part on the mental health. It's kind of draining. That's just how life is. So when you are setting those goals, think about your mental health. So things that you can do for your mental health is journaling. That's something that you can do, and showing lots of gratitude. That's something that's very smooth. It's very easy. It doesn't take a lot. So incorporating lots of gratitude into your day to day. Also, if you can, and this is also with physical activity as well, try something like yoga or stretching, something that will allow you to do some meditation. So meditation, prayer, yoga, stretching, things that will allow you to be centered and calm and really think about the mental part of your goals in your health and wellness. And this is not only for our members and our friends with the bleeding disorders or other conditions, but this is also something that our caregivers and support people can think about and do as well. Because remember, if you aren't 100% yourself, there is a very low chance that you would be able to be a great caregiver and support person to your loved one. So those are things that you want to think about as the caregiver or support person. So as a shared goal, practicing things like joint mindfulness or stress reduction techniques. So like yoga, meditation, prayer, things like that. As the individual with that bleeding disorder or other health condition, practicing that mindfulness. So thinking about setting a SMART goal, saying that you want to have 15 minutes of just mindfulness each day. That's very specific, it's measurable, it's time bound. So just thinking about something that's very achievable. So 15 minutes of, gratitude. That's something that you can think about incorporating into your 2025 goals if that's something that you don't do already. And then as the caregiver, developing coping strategies, because it takes a lot to be a caregiver and support person. I'm a caregiver of 4. I have 4 kids, and so it might be a little different, but it's still the same. I'm a caregiver. So just thinking about ways that I can cope with this the stress of raising, 4 individuals at, different developmental stages, and then seeking emotional support so you can be that support for your loved one. So another
Can I add something? Can I add something,
absolutely.
Robyn? Yeah. So what you're saying is very good.
Sure,
And
yeah.
what it does is it builds your resilience. So when, unfortunately, bad times come around, bad bleeds, things like that, you are more mentally strong to handle it, because you've worked on your mind with the kind of things you were talking about.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought up the term resilience, because that's something that I know we can't see it because Zoom does not like me tonight. But the term resilience is a term that I incorporated or heavily put into the presentation, because that resilience is something that keeps us going. We are all of us, we are going to get hit or affected by just life. And I always say life because life just always happens, but having that resilience is what keeps us going. It's what keeps us on our goal path. And that's what keeps us in the space to be able to share with others, like how we're doing tonight. So yes, thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate
And
that.
I kind of compare it to like a bank account. You keep depositing more resilience, the stronger you'll become. And like I said, when a crisis hits, you'll be able to handle it better. So
Yeah.
resilience is one of my favorite words too.
I love it. I always say Robyn resilience, R&R, that bounce back, that yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely, yes. And in these times where things are changing and they're changing so quickly, and then with the unexpected, it is great to just have that savings account, like you said, that bank account of just having that resilience, because we're going to need it. And then having that sense of resilience and being able to share that with our loved ones and sharing that with our friends. So putting in so we can be able to lay it back out. So absolutely. Thank you.
And one thing, we know the country is going to go under a lot of change after the election. And so we're going to need resilience when it comes to things like medical insurance. Uh, um, just we don't know how policies are going to be changed or let go of or whatever. So you need to be resilient when you have to deal with your insurance company to make sure they cover you for the kind of things that you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because another really important, I think, critical um, aspect of that is not only do we need that resilience, and with resilience, there's the need for education and advocacy. So in order for us to be really, really resilient and be able to bounce back from the things that life and just, the world throws at us, we have to be as educated as we can and being able to be advocates for ourselves and for each other. So for the individuals, learning more about your condition and treatment options. So it's something that we may have or born with or live with, but the more that we learn about our conditions and the more that we know and are educated about our condition and treatment options, the better prepared we are to be resilient and also being able to be advocates for ourselves and for others. As the caregiver or support person, educating yourselves on how to provide the best care. So not only will the affected with the bleeding disorder or other health condition, they are learning and continuously educating themselves about their conditions and other treatment options. But as the support person and the loved one, it's also important for you to set goals of educating yourselves on how to provide the best care. So the more education that you have as well as that caregiver, the better you can be that support and you can advocate for your family or your friend. Now, a shared goal that you all can come together with is advocating for greater awareness of bleeding disorders through things like social media, through local events in your city or your town, sharing amongst your small groups of friends and families. So that's something that you all can come together with and say, hey, this year I want to attend 2 events that are happening, or I want to share 2 posts about my condition, something that is like an action task. It doesn't have to be super huge, and it doesn't have to be, like tons of money or anything. Just sharing, just educating. That's something that you all can make a goal to do. So education and advocacy are 2 things that really are like the backbone and like the meat and potatoes of that resiliency that we just talked about. So
when you mention education, at my old nonprofit, we used to call it informed consent, so that when you see a doctor, you don't take everything he says at face value because you have an understanding as well.
yeah, absolutely. That informed consent, that's great. Yes, being informed and giving that consent of, is this the information that I would like to receive, or is this the information that is relevant to me? So absolutely, yes. So I'm just talking. Does anybody have any questions so far, or have anything to share? I know it kind of shook up with the PowerPoint, but I think the information is rocking and rolling. I hope so. Yeah. All right. So here we are at resilience building. So I want us to, as we wrap up this year and then we go into this new year, I want us to set a goal to cultivate just a space and just like the normalcy of positive self-talk and celebrating small wins and putting into our resiliency bank of, positivity, positive self-talk, and celebrating small wins and big wins. That is another really important way for us to build up that resilience, to have that resilience building. As the caregiver, ensuring self-compassion and seeking support to avoid burnout. Even as the affected, we can get burnt out really quickly. And I know as a caregiver or a support person, that is something that we see very often is burnout. So in this new year, if you have burnt out this year, or if you have felt yourself kind of that slow burn, make it a goal for yourself to take a pause and think about some things that you can do for self-care to avoid that burnout, okay? And that is also resilience building. Now, as a shared goal, you all could foster a supportive environment that encourages resilience and growth. So it's a new term that we have. I love the resilience bank. I love that. So that's what I'm going to be using. So I thank you so much. Pouring into and depositing into that resilience bank and encouraging each other as the one that's affected or with that health condition, and as the support person and caregiver. Encourage each other to put into your own resilience bank, okay? So we're cultivating positive talk and celebrating all wins, big and small, and then doing things to avoid that burnout. And that's avoiding burnout for you as the one that's affected and the one that is a caregiver. Very, very important. That's something that I'm putting at the top of my 2025 goals, is to do things that will not have me burnt out. So the next one is social engagement and connection. So participating in support groups and joining a member organization. So this, what we're doing right now, is social engagement and connecting. So we're connecting, we're socializing, we are coming together. As a caregiver, the same thing, coming together, socializing and connecting, strengthening social networks for emotional support. And then as that shared goal, planning or participating in regular social events or activities together to stay connected with others in the bleeding disorder community. So it could be in your local city or town, or in your neighborhood, or if you have met someone at an event, or if you know someone who has a bleeding disorder, coming together and maybe having just like coffee, or having a FaceTime group, but staying connected and having that social engagement and connection. So in this next year, you can say, hey, once a month, I want to reach out to my cousin's friend who I know has hemophilia, or I want to reach out to my old classmate. I know that he or she just learned that they have von Willebrand. Coming together and connecting, having that social engagement, and just really staying in the loop with each other. It's another form of self-care, just connecting with other people. And then just really connecting and just having that social connection is really important for us mentally, physically, emotionally. So that's something that you could, as the affected and the caregiver, can think about setting a goal for in this new year. Now, we kind of talked about this just a few minutes ago, but financial and emergency preparedness. This is a really important one, and a really big one, that in no matter what year or no matter what point in our lives, we always try or we think about those emergencies, just, emergency funds, preparedness packets, things that we need to be ready for when life happens. So for the individual, budget for expenses by reducing non-essential spending monthly. So that could be a goal that you set. So, each month, and just thinking about those SMART goals, each month I'm going to cut down on eating Chick-fil-A every day for breakfast. That's what, like $40 like a week. But that instead of, going out and having breakfast, and I love Chick-fil-A breakfast. So instead of using that money for those little chicken minis, I can put it in an emergency fund, right? As for the caregiver, what you could do or set a goal to do is assist with researching or applying for financial assistance programs for your loved one or for your family. So that's something that you could set a goal to do. Okay, in 6 months, I want to apply for this particular grant for my loved one, or this program for my loved one. So assisting and supporting your loved one with something like that. And as a shared goal, build an emergency fund specifically for those unexpected medical needs. Just like Jeffrey kind of touched on a few minutes ago, with the new administration coming in, we really don't know what it's going to look like. And we have to be really prepared for what may come. So in preparation, setting a goal to set money aside to build an emergency fund for who knows what could happen, right? And in addition to that, being very aware and trying to educate ourselves as much as possible on new policies and policies that might be changing and things that might be shifting around. So in this new year, and in a year where we will be experiencing a transition of a new administration, I think that would be a really great opportunity for us to set those SMART goals for financial and emergency preparedness, okay? And when we are goal setting, we have that collaboration. So we may have those health conditions or bleeding disorders ourselves, but we oftentimes have a support system, or at least one caregiver or support person, someone that we're close to that can support us. And when we are collaborating in goal setting, this could be with your friend, this could be with your spouse, this could be with your caregiver. When you are collaborating, it's important to have open communication. Having open dialogue and goal setting is very important, just so you all can be well aware and on the same page of what goals you want to set and what goals you want to hit and or exceed. Encourage the discussing the needs and preferences and concerns to create that mutual supportive goal, right? So having that open dialogue and encouraging each other to have preferences and having open dialogues for any concerns that might come up when you are setting those goals and trying to get to those goals. Having a shared responsibility. So we each have our own responsibilities and our own individual goals, and how we're going to set them and what goals we want to set. And then as the caregiver or support person, they have their own goals as well. But when you come together, having those shared goals, having the equal responsibility in the goal setting and the duties in getting to those goals. highlight the significance of supporting each other. So, it's a team. You all are kind of like in it together, and that'll help you stay on track and celebrate those achievements. And then lastly, we are in a period where we have to be flexible and adaptive as much as we can, sometimes fortunately and unfortunately. So acknowledge that health conditions can fluctuate. So you may have really great weeks, really great days, but then there might be a time where you just don't feel well, or your body is just, going through some things, or you're going through a time period where it's just like, I don't know, my blood work is just kind of like all over the place. So it can be one of those things where you just have to be flexible and adaptive and really understanding. So setting goals that are also flexible to be adaptive and flexible to change with certain circumstances is really important. So when you're setting those goals, SMART goals, think about that SMART goals framework, but then also with that framework, make those goals to where they can be flexible and they can adapt to whatever life may throw at us. And then shared or together, discuss how to reassess and adjust goals regularly. So if you set a goal and you're just like, I don't know if we're going to hit that by this time period, take a look at it, reassess it, and adjust it. Take a look at those goals regularly. So if you're like, okay, I set a goal to have, $5,000 saved by the 6th month of the year, by June. If it appears that you might not hit that goal, take a look at the steps that you have created to get to that goal. And if it needs some readjusting, readjust, reassess, but still keep going forward. All right. So collaboration and goal setting, we want to think about having open communication, shared responsibilities while we are taking our own responsibilities, and then being flexible and adaptive. So celebrating successes. So we want to celebrate the small wins and the big ones. So if it's something that's really big, celebrate it. And if it's just a small win, like, hey, instead of, having physical activity for 3 days a week, I actually did 5. That's something that you should celebrate. And with celebrating those big and small wins, it increases motivation and resilience and improves your mood and overall well-being for not only you, but for the people around you and your caregiver or loved one. It creates a stronger bond between you and your loved ones, your friends and families, your support person or people, and just the people that you care for. And it gives you an enhanced sense of accomplishment for the people or the person that is on your side, or the person or people that are helping you in reaching your goals. So as this year ends, think about, as you reflect again, think about those big and those small wins and celebrate those. And then as you go into the new year, think about the goals, and when you hit those goals, celebrate those successes, big and small. So as we wrap up, tips for successful goal achieving. You want to define what matters to you the most. Things that matter to you the most might not look the same or might not be the same to others. So while you are creating your SMART goals, think about what matters to you. Define those goals and create them because they matter to you. That's really all that matters. You want to remember to set realistic and achievable goals. Reach for the sky, but then you also want to make sure that it is attainable. So make those goals realistic and achievable, okay? You don't want to set yourself up to be disappointed if you don't meet it, or if you happen to come up short, okay? break goals into smaller, actionable steps. So it's okay to have a big goal. So, my big goal is to, you say, my big goal is to be a new homeowner. Perfect. But in the process of becoming a new homeowner, break it down into those actionable steps. So this would look like budgeting. So you want to budget for your emergency fund. You want to budget for this. You want to budget for that. So break it down into smaller actionable steps. Okay. Create a plan of action. What is the term? Plan without an action is a wish. I might be making that up, but it's something like that. So in order to get to where you're trying to go, you want to create a plan of action. Stay consistent. You can't just, stop and start. Well, you can stop and start, but how will you be able to hit that goal in that time bound or in that SMART goal that you have set? So you want to stay consistent. And then lastly, remembering that life will happen. So being open to be flexible and adaptable. Okay. So those are some tips for successful goal achieving. Define what matters to you, realistic goals, breaking them down into smaller actionable steps, creating an action plan, staying consistent, and being flexible and adaptable. So we're coming on down to the end. I had some resources for us, which I could probably share in the chat. I can share those in the chat with us.
That sounds great, Robyn.
And you can access those resources. And I also wanted to plug the symposium. So this will be my first time at the symposium. So if y'all are kind of wondering like, oh, I haven't been, this will be my first time too. So you can go to the website. I can also put the link and QR code if you're interested in the symposium in 2025. That could be a goal, like, hey, a goal is to attend the HFA annual symposium. It'll be in San Diego, so I will put that in the link in the chat as well. And I think that's it. I am so regretful that y'all couldn't see the visuals, but the information was still the same. So thank you all for being so patient with the technical difficulties in the last month of the year.